Hey everybody, this is Joseph Vogley of Stogely Films. I am the co-writer, the director, and the creator of the new slasher sensation Specimen 6. And I am joined today with my very good friend.
Hi, I'm Mariana Cipolletta.
And we like to call this inaugural episode of this new podcast, which we'll be doing on a weekly basis, the No Country for Joe and Mariana podcast. And there's Ruby in the background there. And we are joined here by my very good friend. This week, our special guest is Dave Newton, independent writer, artist, and filmmaker, and musician as well. I've heard his music. So how's it going, Dave?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for joining us today here. We got a few different things. What we like to do here in this podcast is we like to talk about movies. We like to especially talk about horror movies. We like to talk about things in the pop culture that really excite us. But basically, we like to talk about anything that's not related to anything in the real world that is terribly boring, like politics and everything. So if you're into politics and you're on all that stuff, you're in the wrong podcast. Right here, we're talking about entertaining things. So the first thing that we like to talk about is movies that we've seen recently. And I'm very excited because Mariana had not seen this particular film, and I know she's excited to talk about it. And I introduced it to her, so it fills me with a great deal of glee and joy. So, Mariana, tell us about the movie that you watched recently.
So, as you can see from the background, it's Carrie and the Hendersons. It's a 1987 comedy. It stars John Lithgow. I think I said that right. Rick Baker, I think, did a really great design of the Sasquatch, and it's set in our own backyard in Seattle. So that was really cool to see all the sides. And speaking of that, there is a scene where they're walking through the streets of the city, and I have never seen that much available street parking ever in my life. I don't understand how they were able to accomplish that, but they did. So the Hendersons take in this wonderful, intelligent, beautiful creature, and they kind of learn that he's more man than he is animal. And I thought that was really interesting, and it was super funny. It was easily one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and definitely a feel-good movie.
I am so glad that you enjoyed that film. And you went on that bike ride the other week, and you actually drove by another one of the filming locations because you were over by Deception Pass there, weren't you?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so I've actually stopped through there. There's this point at Deception Pass as this giant Sasquatch statue, and they have like booths, except obviously I don't think the booths are open right now, but they have all these different postcards and little gadgets and gadgets of Sasquatches all over the place. And I love Sasquatches. Bigfoot is one of my favorite things ever. We were just talking about this earlier, how there's all these different theories as to what Sasquatch is actually. And so some people think he's this missing link. There's maybe only one of them. My favorite theory as towards what a Sasquatch or Bigfoot is that they are interdimensional creatures that can step in and out of this dimension and go into other dimensions, and that's why you can't see them all the time or from with satellites or anything like that. And really, if you think about it, it's the most logical thing to me is that, well, how else would we not be able to see them? What are your thoughts on Sasquatch and who they are?
They're at my house, bro. They're at my house hanging out.
Yeah, they're just hanging out at day.
Yeah. I'm good at the Sasquatch sex. That's why they like.
Wow. Sasquatch sex. You know what? I bet I wouldn't want to type that into Google. That would be kind of anything that you type into Google, it exists.
I'll type it into Google.
Okay, Dave, sex right now.
Dave is officially on a list right now.
So, Mariana, what are your thoughts on Sasquatch himself, Bigfoot?
So
You think he exists?
I want to. I am a bit of a skeptic when it comes to anything beyond what's real, but I think that's just because I live in a very, structured, real environment. So it's kind of hard to get in tune with that kind of mentality, right? I try to spend some time out in the woods and whatnot, but it's really hard for me to believe in those things when there's no actual like I've never seen it, right? So then for me, that's the issue. However, I do really enjoy reading about mythological creatures like Sasquatch and potentially dreaming that there is something out there that hasn't been discovered. We were just talking about this earlier. There was back in January, the WSDOT caught a sighting in Sherman Pass, and I was looking at the picture. It looks pretty legit. I'm not gonna lie. It gave me a little bit. It gave my confidence of not believing a little bit of a shake, but yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot to unpack with creatures that we don't understand or know about. And I think Sasquatch could be a really good journey to go on of discovery.
That's a fine answer. Speaking of unpacking Sasquatches, what do we find out about Sasquatch sex?
Bigfoot loves sex. And
Really?
Amazon has a book titled as much, Bigfoot Loves Sex, a Sasquatch Erotic Tale. And if you want to know what it's about Angela Decker, and she's tired of her sexless marriage. And for as much as she loves her husband Arnold, his controlling ways and non-existent sex drive have driven her to the point of breaking. Little does she know that Bigfoot loves sex until she stumbles into the forest during a Sasquatch mating season and finds the mysterious lover of her beastly dreams.
Oh my goodness.
When is Sasquatch mating season? Because that's the time I would like to avoid trips to the woods.
That's a good question.
It's when the Northwest tree octopus is in season.
When you hear that whispering,
what's really cool is I went up to Mount Baker to go skiing last year, and they have all of these like silhouette cutouts of Sasquatches, and they get bigger and bigger as you're going up the mountain. And I mean, it's like an hour drive to get all the way up to the ski area. And I thought that was really cool. I don't know if you've been up there, Joe.
Up where again?
Mount Baker.
Oh yeah, many, many times. Yeah, I don't know if there's ever been any Sasquatch sightings up at Mount Baker. I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, because the silhouettes are everywhere, and I swear, like the first time I saw it, I didn't realize that they were just silhouettes. So I was like, what was that we just passed by?
So Dave, Mariana had seen Harry and the Hendersons. What movie recently have you watched that you enjoyed quite a bit?
I went back to my old favorite, Silverado. It's a sleeper Western, I guess. It wasn't, I guess it didn't really do good at first in the box office. But as time went on, as the film aged, people realized really what a great film it was. I know it was one of the first roles that Kevin Costner had before he turned all monotone. So he actually did a pretty good job in it. Silverado is kind of about an outfit of guys who are on their way to Silverado, and when they get home, they found out that this bad guy had taken over the law enforcement, had taken over the town, and was doing a lot of things to hurt people, taking land, killing cattle, or whatever it was, and they fought back, and it's a great movie. It's not a typical Western, I would say, that you would expect. It's I don't really know how to describe it. It's an action movie, definitely suspense, set in the West, without being as much, they shoot them Indians and cowboys, and it's no Tombstone, okay.
Speaking of good, yeah, Tombstone's a great Western too.
It is.
Different variations. So, and then, yeah, I just watched 2 days ago. I watched the new Bloodshot film with Vin Diesel in it, based off the Valiant comic book. So Vin Diesel plays this dude that was a soldier, and he dies, and they bring him back by putting all these nanites and stuff in his blood, and so he comes back to life. And these nanites keep him like healing him and everything like that. Every time he gets shot in the face, you see all these nanites like flying out, and then they all come back. And then he's trying to discover really who he is, and he keeps thinking that he needs to go. I'm not going to give away too much because there is a cool plot twist, but he's hell bent on revenge to go kill this dude that killed his wife that we know of. But I have to say, it's like one of the cooler action superhero films I've seen in the last couple of years, because I was not expecting the story to actually be as intriguing as it was. And when he is fighting and everything like that, the more that he's like getting shot and punched and everything like that, the nanites warm up, and so you see him, he's like glowing red and everything like that. So I highly recommend Bloodshot. That was a very cool action movie. So yeah, so that was the movies that we've seen this week. So I'd like to say that we usually on this podcast and other things that you've seen on this channel, I usually talk about horror movies because that's what I do. I make horror films myself. I've directed a couple, The Last Temptation of Bible Boy, the new Specimen 6, which is coming out. I've done some shorts. I did a short with Mariana. Dave helped me with Bible Boy. And Dave's working on some independent films himself right now. So so Dave's on here because I wanted to talk to Dave. But first, about what he's working on as far as his independent film. And I think you posted some stuff on YouTube recently about the story that you have that you want to tell. Is there anything that you can tell the listeners or watcher viewers about the film that you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm making a film where I wouldn't necessarily call her a protagonist or antagonist. It's about Raven, which is she's the ruler of the darkness, and basically what she does is over time, anyone who's merciless, anyone who's bad or evil of any type, she basically takes them into the darkness and does to them for all eternity what they did in life. And then she can use these people by summoning them to, I guess, go after more bad guys. But she's sort of reaching the end of her time in her body. She has to get a new body every so often. And so the next film is about where she rescues or kidnaps a small girl after killing her abusive father, and then of course an investigator comes along to find the little girl, rescues the little girl before the transfer can take place, and all hell breaks loose, and all like the monsters that she's been capturing start to get out and kill the city, and the investigator realizes he fucked up, and he has to take the child back to her to finish the transfer, and basically save the day.
Yeah. It sounds awesome. Yeah, I'm looking for. So Dave says that I can act in that, so I'm very excited to act in that. And it's real dark because if you know Dave, like he gave you the family friendly version of that as best as he could, but like shit gets dark in Dave's world, and I've known Dave long enough to know that it gets really dark. So your production company, what was your production company's name again, so everybody knows?
It's Black Gravity Films. If you YouTube it, you can look it up and see some of my films on there. There's a couple of things from like schoolwork on there, but there's definitely my first quarter short that I made, which is the prequel to what I'm making for next quarter for the other short. And I think I have a couple of songs on there that are, mostly done. I make theme music for movies,
So yeah, and I wanted to talk about that too because I enjoy your music, but I think like really you introduced me more because you do kind of like industrial sort of. Could you tell us about the music that you do? Where does it come from? What things do you like about it?
It definitely has some influence from industrial, but it's a little less goth and beat heavy. It's more like I would call it like a black industrial or a black ambient. Sometimes at the beginning of movies where they have like a real dark song or something for the theme, that's the kind of music it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely go to Black Gravity Films, yes, on the YouTube, and then go listen to his music. I've heard it. I love it. I also love the short video that he just came out with. I mean, if you like dark horror, you're definitely going to like Dave's work. So speaking of dark horror, I wanted to talk about why we love horror, because that's really what we're going to end up talking about a lot on this show. We do get a little lighthearted. We want to talk about Harry and the Hendersons and things like that. I think that's like, kind of tangentially connected, because you talk about Bigfoot, we're talking about cryptid monsters and stuff like that. So we're always going to be in that same ballpark, so long as there's good monsters or maybe a little bit of blood. Like if you've ever seen like Monster Squad, that's definitely a family-friendly film. It's one of the greatest. Have you seen Monster Squad, Mariana?
I have not.
See,
I
that's
have
your
some homework.
You have to watch Monster Squad.
Oh yeah.
But right now I wanted to talk about what we love about horror movies and in the horror genre in general. And so that is what we're going to talk about just for a minute. So Mariana, you first. What do you love about the horror genre?
So I really enjoy older films, like older slashers like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then also my favorite kind of horror is movies like Alien. So I'm kind of like on two sides here, like got the slashers and then also more sci-fi. And the reason for that is that the sci-fi, you can really, when you're working with sci-fi, you can do anything. Like you can just create it off the top of your head. And I think that creates an environment for people to really be able to, express creativity in the horror genre. The slasher films, I think, also do the same thing, except in the creators are forced to work within certain real parameters, right? Especially older films, because we didn't, there was no really good CGI or anything back in the 70s. So, that you've got all these things that they have to figure out, it's the making of the movie for me for slashers is what's really interesting.
And Dave, what do you love about the horror genre?
I think every person, whether they admit to it or not, has a little bit of evil or darkness inside of them. I mean, we've all felt it. You're driving down the road, somebody infuriates you, you're having a bad day, and you just feel like that rage build. And whether or not you control it, I guess, separates every individual. But I like how horror sort of taps into that inner darkness, the not just fear, but any negative emotion that people tend to have, and it helps sort of bring it to the surface, and I think a way that allows us to deal with these things, because horror movies are entertaining, but we live in a fucked up world where that stuff is really happening, and I think without some sort of way to deal with it on a different level, I think things could get really bad. So I think it really helps us. It's a little bit like comic relief to reality. So
can I piggyback off of that for a second? Because I totally agree, but I think there's also an element of some people, instead of like seeing themselves or their darker side in these villains, maybe having this feeling of like, I could survive in that situation, right? So maybe feeling like they could solve that puzzle. So I think there's two sides to it. I agree with David, but I also think that there's people who watch them because they think they kind of see it as like almost like a training ground, like if that's possible, then I got to prepare for that, you know?
Exactly. We live in a scary world, and every day we have to overcome these fears in order to succeed in everything that we do. And I think horror movies taps into that. It's this unstoppable thing. Like, this terrible thing is scary. And you have to survive it. You have to overcome it. And don't be the slowest runner either.
So
what about you, Joe?
Well, I think I definitely agree with those things. For me, the thing, I guess it kind of changes. I got a lot of different places in my heart for horror films. Where it starts out is definitely when I first started watching horror films, I was probably about 6 years old. And I saw King Kong, Friday the 13th Part 5, and a whole lot on TV. And I remember being scared at first, but then I realized that it was a good feeling to be scared in those movies, and it definitely kind of prepares you for other emotions in life. And so I was a latchkey kid, and my folks were gone a lot, so they were split up. My dad lived in Seattle. My mom was often working, and so I was often at home with my brothers, and we would fight a lot. Like, we would get bloody and punch each other and stuff like that. So the horror movies themselves were nothing compared to what was going on between us. And so I always I was able to escape into those movies. And after a time, and also because those movies kind of brought us together too. So I remember as a kid, my brothers and I, we would watch a lot of horror films together. So we would go to the store, and our mom would rent them for us. And so she'd be at work, and we'd watch those. So those would actually be kind of like the good moments between us. And we're super good friends now, but when we were kids, like, we were drop kicking and punching each other. And I remember one time my brother Chris got up on top of me and just started wailing away, and my blood was all over my nose and everything. But the moments that we were actually good to each other were when we were watching horror films and we were talking about those horror films. And so that always meant a lot to me. And then also growing up later on in life, I've just always, I guess I got really obsessed with the blood and the guts and everything like that. And I discovered the love of going to horror conventions. And so, and especially Crypticon Seattle. And Crypticon Seattle, the first moment I walked through those doors, I felt like that was a place that I belonged. And so for me, horror movies, horror fans, all of that stuff just gives me a sense of family and belonging. And so that's what I love about horror films. So next up on the docket, we want to kind of talk about a little bit of this and that. We're not quite sure because it's still the inaugural episode, and we haven't quite figured this out. Winging it. And so I'm really glad that everybody is here and we're talking and doing this right now. So I think maybe let's stay on the horror genre and talk about maybe some of our favorite horror characters. So, and why we...
Oh, no, we lost Dave.
Oh, we lost Dave. Hopefully Dave can join us again. So Mariana and I will just keep talking. And we're still recording, so we're good to go. So Mariana, who is your favorite horror character?
Like general character?
Like a monster or anything like that.
Oh, goodness. I think I'm just going to go back to Alien. I think, it's hard. Might be the Predator.
How about that's why, well, unfortunately, there hasn't been like a great Alien versus Predator film. I enjoy them. Have you seen the directors? Well, let's stay on Alien and Predator then, because I love Alien and Predator. And I read a lot of those books too. So I want to say those are my favorite, like, horror themed characters or anything like that. But I actually, if you look at my bookshelf, I think I have like 20 Alien books and a whole bunch of other Predator books. Oh, Dave's going to come back to us. I'm admitting him right now. So as soon as he joins us, maybe we can see what he thinks about Alien versus Predator. So actually, okay, well, we're kind of all over the place. So, hey, Dave, can you hear us?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so
Welcome back.
Right now we're talking about our love for Alien and Predator and Alien versus Predator and all that. Mm-hmm. So I've read several of the books. I've seen all of the movies. What of all the Alien and Predator films is your favorite one, Mariana?
I would say the 1979 Original Alien with Sigourney Weaver giving everyone the business.
See, I agree with you there. I love all the sequels, though. I always go to the theater and see all the sequels. I've seen Covenant, and before that, oh God, my mind's blanking. What was the one before that? From Prometheus. I saw Prometheus. I've actually read the prequel book to Covenant, which was really good. It's about this religious cult that's trying to stop the Covenant from leaving the Earth because they're having visions about this alien thing that'll come back to Earth and kill everybody. And it's really good. And there's all these exploding animals that are like filled with cybernetic parts, and so they're basically booby trapped, and so this animal will run up and you'll be, what a cute little bunny, and they'll explode and kill you. I like all of them, but yeah, I agree with you. I like the first one the most. I even love part 4. People shit all over part 3. I love that one. Dave, which one of the Alien films, or what do you love the most about the Alien or Predator films?
I'm going to have to go with the 1986 Aliens.
James Cameron.
Yeah, James Cameron filmed that one. I like it because they really stepped it up a notch, and I don't know. Bill Paxton was in that one. Did he die in that?
Yes.
Then he died to Predator too, didn't he?
Yeah, Predator 2.
Predator 2. He died in Aliens 2 or Aliens and Predator 2.
Yeah. Aliens was a superior film. Predator 2 is a pretty good fun watch, but I would not call it a superior film of any sorts.
Yeah.
You know what? Oh, I love getting into the minutia of the Alien and the Predator, and especially when I'm reading the books and everything. So, like, the technical name for the Predators are the Yaja, if you read the books, and they changed the history here and there about where they come from. But one of my favorite things, I read this one particular book where on the Predator world, and they changed this later on, but on the Predator world, the male predators are actually much smaller than the female predators. So the female predators are like huge, and they have this like crazy violent sex, and the female predators are also the scientific based ones of the species, and they create all the technology and everything like that. And then the men are the warriors, and so but they changed that later on to where they're more like, hey, they don't know where they get their technology and everything like that. But I like to really dig into the Alien versus Predator and everything like that. So anyway, well, there was that.
Another medium that I really like seeing horror in is graphic novels. And since we're talking about Alien and Predator, there is an Archie versus Predator and an Archie versus Predator 2. It's written by Alex DeCampi. I believe it's Fernando Ruiz that does the art on it, and it's phenomenal. It's just like you've got Archie's like classic smile while he's like holding 2 guns and like firing at the predator, and it's just like blood and gore everywhere. That just juxtaposition is done really, really well in that. The story is also not too bad, but yeah, the thing that really got me on that was the art. Have you read it?
I haven't read it. I want to read that one, but I haven't. I have read Batman versus Predator and a couple of those sequels, and I remember I still have the dog-eared issues of Batman versus Predator, because Batman ends up at one point after getting his ass kicked by the Predator, he creates like this armor, this Batman armor, and he goes out into the swamps and he starts fighting Predator, and it was freaking sweet. So. But that would be my horror and comics in general. So like Bernie Wrightson's art and stuff like that, Tomb of Dracula. Of course, I love everything horror, so I could talk about that for days. Dave, what do you like about horror in comic books?
Well, I'm not really. I haven't really gotten too deep into the comic books. They were like the evil like when I was a child. My parents thought I'd go to hell if I read them. So. I'm not too well versed in that, but I am into like Japanese cyberpunk horror, so I guess that could kind of be.
Here's my question: is tentacle porn considered like horror? because you got like weird tentacles and stuff. Like, what was that one Ninja Scroll where like I remember I watched that as a kid and like that big fat he's like a samurai warlord or whatever. You can see him like having sex with this chick behind these curtains and all these tentacles start flying all over. I mean, that's technically like horror in itself, but also porn.
Well, if I get an erection, it's porn. So that's my limit. So that I'm definitely getting erected if I watch that. It's porno.
That's a good...
Are you happy you brought me into your podcast?
Yeah.
Or?
Oh yeah, it's all on the table.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's not. You know, there's actually like so there is a lot of weird horror porn. There's actually an Evil Dead one. I saw a clip of that, and that was all. So like the chick's body is falling apart, but they're like doing it and everything like that. I kind of don't get like a Woody from that stuff, so I kind of like that one's like a bridge too far for Joe.
Well,
so
there's like a porn scene in like Tetsuo the Iron Man where he like he has sex. His cock turns into a giant drill, and then he like has sex with his woman, but she lives through it. It's so confusing. I love that movie though, Tetsuo the Iron Man. Check it out. Yeah.
You know the liquors in Resident Evil?
Uh-huh.
I've seen the movies, but I haven't played the games very.
Okay, so there is definitely a clip out there of a liquor just like going to town.
Is that like one of the monsters?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
It's like the one that like crawls and it has like its brain out. And it has like
It's
a
like
really long
exposed
tongue.
brains.
Yeah, and he's got like, this really long tongue that like comes out.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty, and the porn was pretty nasty too.
Okay.
It was only like a minute 12 or something. Is that too specific?
I'm looking it up right now. I want to see what you're. Okay, I see Liquor Wiki. Okay, so what this says here is liquors are mutant humans that result from the V-ACT process, a trait in certain T virus strains, which forces a second set of mutations among severely injured zombies. Liquors are noted for their large exposed brains, lack of skin and eyes, extreme sensitivity. Oh, now I have to open this. So this is on like Fandom Wiki or something like that. They should not be confused. Oh, extreme sensitivity to sound and their eponymous tongues. They should not be confused with crimson heads, mutants, which are the result of a separate T virus strain undergoing this process. See, I almost got confused. I was like, wait, that sounds just like a crimson head to me. No.
Yeah. Sounds like where COVID is headed.
Yeah. Well, one could only hope that it actually gets cool like that.
You're gonna get some comments on that one.
So, well, we're straying over into video games and horror, actually, because we're talking about Resident Evil. I played a couple of them, and I really like it, but I have a tendency just to run and gun. And so I know I was playing with my wife, and she always screams at me. She's like, where are you going? You got to come over here. And so if I start veering off somewhere because I just want to start shooting some zombies, she'll start screaming at me about that. And so I have a hard time kind of staying on focus when it comes to story. That's why I like there's a bunch of other video games I end up like the zombie games for Call of Duty and stuff like that. I just end up running around all over the place and shooting stuff. But there was this really cool horror video game called The Suffering that came out on PS2 or PS3. And you're this guy that wakes up in this prison that's just been rocked by this earthquake, and there's all these monsters around the place. And so you have to escape the prison and the island. But you don't know if you're a good guy or a bad guy, but you keep hearing this voice in your head like telling you to kill people, and so all your actions end up changing the narrative, the storyline itself. But then you also end up hearing all these creepy little kids laughing and everything like that. That was always my favorite horror video game, The Suffering. Yeah.
I really liked this Walking Dead one, and I don't think that it's actually connected to like the show. And I've never actually seen the show or read the comics of The Walking Dead, which is crazy because I love zombies.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know, I just never got around to it. But I did play this game. It was like I think it's just called The Walking Dead, and you have to, it just changes, right? It's like a choose your own adventure kind of story. I thought that was a really neat kind of thing.
So we were talking about The Walking Dead. My wife just popped in because we've been nursing our cat because it turns out she has arthritis. And so she had to get a shot, and we've been giving her pills and stuff like that. That has been a horrific week, all that stuff. Boy, that kind of so The Walking so which one of the Walking Dead games? I think we actually have a couple over here.
I cannot tell you. Like, I don't remember. This was like almost a decade ago that I was playing it.
It was the one with Daryl, because I bought one for Liz where you play, it's Daryl and his brother. And I remember if you have to be really quiet because anything you do draws more and more zombies. And I thought that was really cool. I think at one point Liz was stuck on top of this car surrounded by all these zombies, and she couldn't get out of there because if she tried firing her guns, it would just, probably run out of bullets, but also bring hundreds more zombies. So I thought that was pretty rad.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome they included that. I always, you start shooting in the games and they don't really respond to your sounds ever, and it's kind of cool that they'll come for you. They hear your gunshots.
The Saw video games are pretty cool too. So in Saw, you kind of wake up and you have to get through all the different mazes and figure out the different booby traps that Jigsaw has left for you. And it's just like the movie, and those were super cool. Those were we have 1 and 2. I don't know if they made a 3, but those were super cool horror video games too. So I guess right now, that was a pretty successful podcast. Is there anything else that we want to talk about or promote at the moment? I know I like to say that Specimen 6 will be out on DVD at the end of June. Oh, yes, look at this. So this is a very special. I appreciate the way that she showed that as well.
Hold on. There.
Boobies!
Oh, right there.
Mommies love Specimen 6.
I made that shirt for her, and I got one. Those are special editions. Sorry, folks, those ones aren't for sale. But we will have other ones that are for sale that as soon as July comes rolling around. So the DVD, the digital will be out hopefully the end of June, beginning of July. That just depends when the DVD comes to me. I'll end up putting the digital out before the DVDs, so people can rent it.
It says Unstoppable, and it's a T-Rex with the little grippy hands.
I have a shirt like that too. I also have the little grippy hand with the dinosaur on the end of it.
You mean somebody else made this? Because I designed that on that T-shirt site. Damn it, somebody takes my ideas every time.
Yeah, Hot Topic took your idea. Or was it Spencer's? I don't know. You can fight them on it.
Fuck you, Hot Topic!
So, and then, okay, well, Dave, so you have Black Gravity Films that's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Is there anything special you wanted to promote at the moment, Mariana, before we end the show?
We are working on a little bit of a Zombie Babes franchise. We're going to have, Joe and I are working on a trailer that we're going to do for the Zombie Babes, Babes of the Damned. Yeah. And we're also going to try to do a parody music video of Barbie Girl using zombie girls.
That's right. So as soon as we're able to start shooting and get all that stuff together, keep focused over here at Stokely Films on the YouTube channel, and we'll post other stuff over on the Facebooks, and we're going to have a new TikTok and everything like that. So we're going all crazy all over the place for our social media. One more time, thank you everybody for joining us for the first episode of the No Country for Joe and Mariana podcast. We're going to be doing this at least once a week on Thursdays. And we will hopefully see everybody here. So remember to hit the subscribe button. That's very important. And we'll see you here again. Also, Specimen 6 coming out soon. And in September at Crypticon, Joe Sherlock from skullfaceastronaut.com, one of my favorite directors and a good friend, Noggins. I am in a movie called Channel 99, which will be premiering in September at Crypticon. So keep your eye out on that. If you want to see some news about that, go over to skullfaceastronaut.com and check that out. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Maybe Dave will join us if he's able to, and we can even get other people, hopefully, that'll show up as well. So thank you again, and it's been a lovely time. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.